Yeah.
Give another second, Patrick's coming in. We'll still start on time.
Now we're never for the hurricanes.
Yay. Now we can start.
I will now call to order the Town of Elon Town Council meeting for September 25th, 2023. If all who are able will please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to the items on the consent agenda. Richard, you gonna read those for us tonight?
Yeah, the only item we have under the consent agenda are the minutes of the September 12th, 2023 town council meeting.
Any questions, comments regarding those meeting minutes? Do you have a motion to approve by reference the items listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to public comments. This is an opportunity for individuals, residents, visitors alike to share any public comments regarding their concerns or wishes for the town. This is an opportunity for items that are not on the agenda this evening. So if anyone, I don't have this sheet.
There was no name.
Okay, if anyone would like to make a public comment, you can stand, state your name and address. Are there any public comments online?
I am not seeing any.
All right, hearing none, we will close the public comment section. Moving to public hearings, consideration of a temporary expansion of the downtown social district until December 17th, 2023.
Good evening, Town Council and Honorable Mayor Sharp. I'm very excited tonight to come to you with a proposal to expand our social district temporarily from October 14th through December 17th, 2023. I think Rich is going to be pulling up a map of the extension boundaries. The reason for this expansion is we have a proposed beer garden that I presented to you at the last council meeting to try a temporary trial beer garden on Holt Avenue. And let's see, in just a moment, he'll be able to pull up the map. And this is actually follows the footprint that we discussed originally when we first discussed opening a social district. So this would encompass Holt Avenue and would include the parcel, the property, which is the Holt Park. We don't really have a name for it yet. I just refer to it as Holt Park for that area to be included. How you doing there?
I'm not doing well at all.
Why are we bringing that up? Just a clarifying piece. Have we designated that property as park property? Because I don't think we have. It is just owned by the town.
Yes, it is owned by the town.
Okay.
All properties designated, they're owned by the town.
Every other property that we've said was going to be a park, we have officially voted to designate it as future park
I
space.
don't recall that.
I don't either.
I think it was kind of like.
Right, it's nameless at this time. Yeah, I've just
That
referred
sounds
to it
better
as
than the
whole.
old jailhouse. Yeah.
Yeah, currently there are 3 picnic tables on the property that sometimes get used, don't get used a whole lot. And
There's a little fence structure there too.
there's a fence structure there. And I think part of the reason that fence structure went up was so people wouldn't go and park on that property.
What are the dimensions of that property?
That I don't know.
Not that big.
It's maybe more than 75 feet wide,
Yeah, it's pretty small.
100 feet deep, probably. Maybe. I mean, it's a small in-town lot. You see where the police department was. I mean, it's not very large.
So it's a sixth of an acre. Zone it for park purposes.
What's that?
I don't believe that that was the future intention of that property ever. I think it was more of a temporary, like, hey, let's call it a park because
Yeah, I understand, I guess, but you know, if we enforce zoning for the rest of the town, is that something we should have, or should take up? Not that it's gonna affect this, but.
You mean more for more a permanent situation or?
It'll be in the downtown core.
In the downtown core, the type of business is allowed in the downtown core already. So there's no zoning change or anything like that. Probably a zoning permit from the planning department, but that's really all that would be needed as far as I know.
So you should have received this. I know that the public can't see this at this moment, but this is what you should have received, this map. Which shows the boundaries of the district to include North Holt Avenue. And where the proposed temporary beer garden is. And then I do have a sample too, if Rich is able to pull it up, of some temporary signs. I actually went back to our artist, graphic artist, and asked if he could do just some temporary signs, but that look just like our others for that expansion period. So people would be clear, they know what to look for with those signs. They would just have the temporary period. There's the sign there. So just so it's something consistent, but you know, more of a hard plastic type thing, but not the permanent signs we have now, since it's just a trial period. So that's the sign, but the map that we have to show you, which I don't know, could you get to the map? Too many things. That has the more detailed of course, still excluding, and just to make that clear, excluding the parking lots. So there's the AT&T lot, which is right behind that little park area. And then there's the lot kind of next to it, which now the university owns. We would not allow that to be a part of the social district, following, you know, what the adopted ordinance was from the beginning.
That lot is 1/10 of an acre.
1/10 of an acre. Thank you.
We're gonna show you proposed use for it in just a little bit.
So, you know, again, the reason for the expansion is to test the temporary beer garden. You saw a presentation from Praveen, who's here tonight to answer any additional questions, or if anybody from the public has questions. But my request is for that expansion for this purpose.
All right, we will go ahead and open up a public hearing. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? While we wait, we did receive one comment in our email from Mr. Ralph Harwood. He just had some questions about the logic behind the trial period. Who is the target audience? What advantages they will bring to Elon? What are the economics presented to the town council as to the benefits of the taxpayers of Elon? I think we've addressed all of those questions during our last presentation. Is there anything to add?
I think the only thing I would add at this time is that you were unaware of this now, but I was going to come forward to you to try to do some improvements to that part before this opportunity came available. I met with some student government students their last semester, and they were very interested and excited about doing something, because they said, we'd love to use the space, but there's no reason for us to come out here. So I was going to propose something, at least until we decide a more permanent, if anything permanent, different for that spot, to make it more inviting. And a place that people would like to hang out, have some lighting, some power to run lights, and to make it more decorative. Right now, you go by it and you don't even really know what it is or who it belongs to.
So. Oh, that's right, what's the public hearing? Yeah, so. Okay.
All right, hearing no comments, we'll close the public hearing. Any other comments, questions, Randy?
Yes, I do have a question. Maybe I'm just not seeing the map correctly, but am I under the understanding that the sidewalk that goes, or the lack thereof, sidewalks that go down to Holt from College, and then the sidewalks across, or through down Hope, are those all part of the social district, or are they not?
Yes. Well, currently, or the
No,
proposed?
under this proposed temporary,
Yes.
because it doesn't look like they've been colored or anything, and I just didn't know what that meant. So in other words, someone could get one of their drinks from like Pandora's Pies, for example, walk around the corner and come into the beer garden. And that would not be out of balance for any reason.
Right.
The question is, though, if they cut through the parking lot, that would be an issue, right?
Right.
As it is today.
Do we need to address any signage then,
Yes,
saying this is not social district or something? to that
Yes.
extent? Okay.
yes. We would need signs in that parking lot and even the one that's not ours. The university that once you exit the beer garden area into the parking lot, it's not a part of the social district,
Okay,
as with any of our parking lots,
right.
which many of them are right up to the district itself.
And I just have one question, if I can ask that of the chief. How many citations have we had related to the social district?
So we did some research when this first came up prior to coming to the board, and there were zero issues, 0 calls, 0 citations. We just conducted a pretty extensive, what we call a saturation patrol, targeting illegal drinking, underage drinking, open containers on sidewalk. We had a number of citations in the general downtown area, but none associated with the social district or because of the social district.
Here, I had a couple of questions. So the beverages will be labeled as such. Will they be the same containers that the other merchants use?
Yes.
So be indistinguishable. The other question is one that Councilman Ordway raised last time was, how do we measure success of this? We're gonna put an investment in this for basically bringing it up to a standard where people will come there, basic lighting and porta johns and so forth. Before we commit to something long-term, what do we expect to make this something that we would expand? And unfortunately, because the plaza won't be completed for a majority of this time, it probably doesn't lend itself to attracting crowds or people who would wander around back there. So I just want to know what our expectations are.
Yeah, I'm gonna say our expectation is to attract some people to that site that probably wouldn't have ever come over there because there was no reason to come there. To have another opportunity for the community to gather in that space. Definitely not, this is not geared to just the students. I want to make that clear. It's definitely for the students and for the community to have an opportunity. And I think there's also an opportunity for the businesses, current businesses, to make money on their food services. There's not going to be any food there. So if they gather in this space and they have a drink, they're probably going to get hungry. And so I know that's one thing that Toasty Kettlers really wants to have a partnership with the other businesses. Success is hard to measure. I mean, for me, it's, obviously attendance. It's not this high expectation that we're going to have 300 people out there, on a Thursday night. I think it's just a testing. Hey, do we have 20, 25 people out there? Are they having a good time? Do we not have any issues from the police standpoint? That's a big part. I think, we all need to take an opportunity to go out there and enjoy it, evaluate it, and see if this is something we think is good for our community.
I will say that I've heard from a lot of people who would typically come downtown on Fridays that they're like, they miss that. They miss bringing people together on Friday evenings that the Music to Dine To did. And so I think that this is an opportunity for maybe that to almost fill that void until the plaza has reopened or has opened. And I mean, there's hardly ever students there. It's all families and local people of all ages, from newborns to the elderly. I think that there's, it definitely, the target audience, doesn't, in my opinion, is not the student population. It's the community as a whole.
People are hungry for outdoor venues. They enjoy that. That's where we've gone away from indoor malls. Even if it's chilly, people want to go to outdoor venues and enjoy that. So, picture things going on at the plaza, then Toasty Kettlers. Oh, they have music Friday night. McGurk's has music on Saturday night. Bill has a band. I mean, we could have something going several nights of the week by adding this and just continuing to grow the entertainment value that we have downtown.
Right, well,
Feel free to ask Prav any questions if you have any of him, how he would measure. You know,
Well, I just want to make sure, maybe I just asked this last question is this the right time to do this? Is this the best time? Instead of going to another time of year to test it, that's what I meant. So just,
I'll say, I mean, that's a valid question. As the temperature started to get cooler, goes down that, does outside activity diminish between October and December? That's probably a fair statement. So, you know, we've talked about this trial period and then, gee, and if it's a success, maybe we extend it to, an annual lease or something like that. We may extend it for a couple more months after the colder weather, and then that'd be the business decision of Prav as to when he'd want to redo it, to see what it's like with better outdoor weather. Who knows, maybe it'll be a smashing success and we all agree that good for him, good for us, let's go ahead and do it, but it's, some of this is gonna be a little bit of, I won't say trial and error, but certainly trial, see what works.
So let's just say that it gets really cold fast. Is Prav obligated to be open until December 17th? Or can he make the smart business decision for himself if that became a factor where he's open, but no one is coming because it's freezing outside? Like,
yeah, and I think we're all open to that. Obviously, if it's a rainy night, it's not gonna be open that night. It's an outdoor venue. That's what it means. And sometimes with outdoor venues, you have to make adjustments. If it's hours, if it's, well, we can't open tonight, it's, 50-mile-an-hour winds. I mean, outdoor venues you have to be flexible.
go ahead.
Yeah, the other question I was gonna ask, so I take it, since he doesn't serve food, we wouldn't allow for permits for food trucks to be there, would we?
At this time, we would have to change our ordinance. That's something that Prav and I have discussed, so that would be really great to do that down the road. Especially, let's say Monday nights, we don't have anything open in downtown on Mondays. That might be a great opportunity to have a food truck, but right now our ordinance prevents food trucks within, is it 100 feet of a business? I believe is what it is. So we need to work on that. That was before the thought of, events and different things. So we need to look at that ordinance, but we'd love to see that. And something that we don't have, something that doesn't compete with the current vendor or restaurants that we have.
So going back to attendance, how are we looking at advertising it? Is it gonna be cross promotion between things that would happen at your place of business first, and then we would have it as well, so that we
Yes.
have an intermingling of the two communities?
Yes.
Okay, and how are we gonna go about doing that? Are we gonna have like sandwich board signs on the streets? Are we gonna just social media, or?
All of the above, sandwich signs, banners, social media on both of our sites, website.
I'll also say the downtown board met this past week and some of the thought process was, oh, I could put my menu out there so that people who are coming in for a beer at the beer garden could order there, not have to go to the restaurant to order, they could order takeout. And so there was already that thought process of co-marketing, I guess, which, I think is important, that helps to sustain, his enterprise, turns it into more of a dining area, not just a bacchanalia, place where people go to drink and there's that prospect, and that might be another sign of success. Well, we've had really good interaction between our downtown businesses are working together on this. That's a bonus for everybody.
And that's what I like about this idea, not only just utilizing some space that we have, helping other businesses thrive by utilizing maybe their services for food, but I just really like trying to have this cross relationship between the two towns. And if it starts this way, let's hope that it can grow in other ways. So I think it always has to start somewhere. And if this is the way that it starts, great.
One last question, since Bob, our attorney's here, do you see any risk, it could happen, that could create a problem for us, the town?
Well, there's risk with everything we do. Is there extraordinary risk? I don't believe so. I mean, the General Assembly clearly authorized these, and merely setting it up, I think very, very small likelihood that any kind of liability would come back to the town.
And part of our agreements with probably would be that hold harmless that, you know, he's gonna protect our interests through his insurance as well. So that, you know, if there's something happening, he covers it. It's not gonna come back to us.
Is that something we have to approve or see the agreement between Toasty Catalyst and the town? That's just all staff done.
That was our intent,
I guess we're,
particularly at this stage. On this 2-month trial, you know, it'd be like if we had a festival downtown and we brought a brewery to run a beer garden.
Mhm.
Or pop up, you know, an inflatable tent activity. We would take care of those arrangements with those requirements. If we enter into a long-term lease, you know, that's something we can figure out if you would need to see that or not.
but I guess my question, because I think we should utilize it. I think we should definitely beautify it to a degree, right? Put some lights out to it. Don't want to spend a lot of money. And then we're also gonna be spending money on porta johns, and keeping it up. And I think if I recall, it was only 5% of gross sales the town was gonna receive
For the trial.
for the trial. And just so the dining across from the route and tangent, like those lights and the initial bit of it was the restaurants paid for that stuff. The town helped install the lights and get that
The circuits.
for us.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm really curious about I just don't want the porta johns because I can just foresee them being a walk home, and especially on Thursday and Saturday nights when this place closes at 10. How are those handled? Who's cleaning them? And you know, I'm sure the service is every time it's cleaned, that's an extra charge. So I don't know if we're gonna have just the same people that come downtown to pick up our trash to check the porta johns. Because it's gonna be
I mean, perhaps check them. I mean, it's all new for us.
yeah.
And if that's a note of success or failure. You know, if that turns into be, boy, this is turning into a daily episode, porta johns, then they disappear. You know, quite frankly, you know, whether it's for this, whether it's for any other reason to have one downtown. If it's a disaster every day, you know, that's a service we just won't provide anymore.
Do we have a number of what we think we're gonna spend on this?
The electrical's the biggest bite, and we have one quote thus far, and that's Latour, but we're working on another. So the electrical's about 3,000. And then it'll just be some planter boxes and lighting, which are the lighting, the Public Works Department's gonna use the stake poles like they did out here at it won't be too much for that, so maybe 4,000.
Plus
But-
the porta potty.
Yeah, total
For the truck.
for the, yes. Plus the porta john.
4,000 for the improvement of that area for the town's long-term use.
We
I mean,
already,
we're just put that money into it eventually anyway.
we already
bring
have
power
the
to it
picnic
and-
tables. We don't have to purchase any picnic tables. We have 3 there and 4 that were at the plaza site. We're replacing those with nicer tables for the permanent plaza. They're just sitting at Public Works right now.
So to break even, he'd have to, for us to break even, he'd have to sell $20,000 sales for that period of time, right?
Yeah, I don't think you can look at it that way. You just have to look at it as this is park improvements. That is gonna benefit the town, regardless if there's something there or not. I go so many times I go by there and there's nobody there, and it's a nice little setting. It just needs something to entice people.
And with the resolution that will go on after this on the social district, it would expire in December. So without further action by the board, this stops in mid-December. So it's not anything we have to actively do to stop it. It will cease. Unless we all agree that, you know, we've seen decent revenue, we've seen no issues. There seems to be a decent crowd, it's well behaved, it's all residents, it's a mix, whatever the case may be. Businesses are working together, that may define success for us.
I think, it took me off guard, you know, $3,000 to $4,000, for power. I think it does need power, right? That spot, if we're gonna keep it that way, it's gotta have power. But what if this does turn into a thing that works? Right, you know, we're getting ready to get the downtown master plan and problems to set up permanently, right? Normally we would ask the businesses to draw their power and bring the power into it. Or what if we don't use it at all? What if, you know, an opportunity is where they take all 3 lots? So for 2 months to spend, you know, is there any alternative power? Is there something that we can try with?
We had we thought we might have an opportunity, but it didn't pan out to use some temporary power.
Do any of our businesses lease from the town?
No.
Oh, I was confused by that, because I always thought that they had their own businesses and that's where they got the electricity from.
Yeah.
It's our property, so
If we sold the property, right, if something moved.
that would be the one permanent option, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, we would, you know, since we would go to this investment to have the power box, then could keep that lit up and make it inviting for people to use.
All the time.
Yeah, all the
We
time.
did the fitness class over the summer and, you know, it was still like light in the morning, but some lights would have helped even in those cases, the ability to play music and not on a tiny little speaker during the fitness classes. So I think there's some opportunities. I hate the idea of a porta potty downtown. I'll just say that, but I think that it's a trial. So I think that that's what we need to be focused on is between now and December 17th. If it goes well, we can have further conversation about that, but I think that at this point, we'll go ahead and move on to our ordinances and resolutions and see if we have anyone who's ready to make a motion to approve the resolution to temporarily expand the downtown social district until December 17th, 2023.
I just want to add one more thing
Mhm.
before the motion. So I do a lot of outdoor music festivals. And I didn't know if there would be an opportunity for power to take from a neighbor, where we put a spider box. And run the power from that.
We asked, and the answer was no.
We
Okay.
asked a neighbor.
So there's a tap house beside of it, but we can't tap into it.
Right.
Nice numbers.
It does, is there a power box, at the old dentist office? Still there? Is there something that you can?
There's no other power besides
It's the same area.
coming from the light pole and bringing, the power box in. That could benefit us. I mean, it's never bad to have power on your streets, as you all know.
Do we have a motion?
And this motion is just to approve the
Social district.
social district. This has nothing to do with planning of the beer garden.
No, because that's staff's job is to plan the beer garden. Our job is to approve the resolution that expands the social district.
Or they don't like the beer.
If you don't like the beer garden, then you don't vote for this.
garden.
Because there wouldn't be a point in spending additional money on graphics and signs and everything else. If we don't want to proceed. Okay, I don't have a motion.
And I really like the idea of doing something there.
I'll make the motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it. Let's give it a shot.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You
Not
have to
that-
vote.
I would really like to try to figure out some other power. If it's temporary, like. Oh, this is tough.
Can you just maybe schedule time with Jill and see if we can't figure something out?
talk some stuff.
Maybe we need
Sounds good.
to ask nicely again to our neighbors.
Probably somebody else.
Right, like
Solar power.
silent generators.
There's a solar panel out there.
Okay,
There are solar powered lights, like those lights are not.
all right, well, we'll see you soon. All right, moving on to new business, 2023 Downtown Master Plan, final presentation and approval.
I'm gonna introduce you, Jason. My glasses up here and everything. Okay. So we are very excited about a long process of our downtown master plan. It began in October 2022. We hired Benchmark Consulting to produce our new master plan. The last one was completed in 2014, so it's been quite a while. During this process, residents, business owners, property owners, and the broader community had an opportunity to participate in this process. We have a robust plan that includes urban design, public space recommendations on Williamson Streetscape, which I'm very excited about. Identification of opportunity sites, and you don't need to hear from me anymore. You need to hear from them about this great plan. So I'd like to, who's going first? Jason?
Yeah.
Jason Epley, president, is going to start the presentation, and then Dan Douglas, director for urban design, will continue. So floor is yours.
Thank you. Anything up there? Okay. All right, once again, I'm Jason Epley. It's a pleasure to be back here to talk with you all, mayor and members of the council. Just to give you a reminder of the process that we've embarked on, this has been about a year. I mean, really the last few months just kind of been drafting, but the plan process was really completed after public meetings and input that we received. To remind everyone, the study boundary is a little bit larger than the previous master plan. We wanted to kind of expand the scope of it a little bit, look a little bit down here past town hall, to try to connect town hall a little bit better across the tracks into downtown. That was one of the reasons for looking at that. As you can see, we've kind of expanded over into the university side of North Williamson just to try to pull in and give that idea of the university being part of the downtown, not a hard line down North Williamson. The university is part of the downtown as well. The community survey, just to refresh everyone, to give you another look at that, we had 269 responses over, it was open a full month. We were really happy with the responses and people that responded to it. 90% of the folks that took the survey, and they could check all that apply on this, decided that, dining out, entertainment, just like we were just talking about, that was their main reason for coming to downtown. The post office was way up there as well, festivals and events, recreation, exercise, but you see this theme of, entertainment, things to do. We want to come downtown for that. And I've got to move this bar from Zoom so I can see things.
That's actually neat. I have to move that one.
Oh, it's okay. I can. All right. So what is your favorite thing? No big surprise. Restaurants, dining, food. Everybody likes to eat. And I think in particular downtown, that's one of the main reasons people want to come to downtown. What is your least favorite thing? Parking, no big surprise. Everybody hates parking. Traffic, not enough to do. So we heard a lot of that from comments about downtown. Not pedestrian friendly, not much for families, limited hours of businesses, orange traffic barriers. Of course, that's a great thing because it's created these public spaces, but we know those are going to go away with public improvements, especially there at the Plaza on College. What would make you visit downtown more often? And it should be no surprise, more shopping, more restaurants, more places to eat, more activities, more outdoor seating, all these things that people like about downtown. Those are the things they'd like to see more of in the future. We did ask specific questions about North Williamson to try to get a feel for what people would like to see the streetscape look like in the future. 92% or more would like to see, or strongly would like to see wider sidewalks, places for outdoor seating and entertainment. 91% like or strongly like the idea of trees where practical. 97% like or strongly like more lighting.
Certainly that makes places more safe, and you were just discussing lighting. It helps you enjoy the area more. 94% like or strongly like the idea of having enhanced pedestrian crosswalks to improve safety. Also in the survey, we asked folks to tell us, what would you like to see over the next 10 years? What is your vision? More community gathering spaces, expanded parking, recreation opportunities, downtown library and or museum, fixed traffic, pedestrian environment, infrastructure, aesthetic improvements, and you can see there more coordination with the university. So with that information and with the downtown assessment that we presented earlier this year, we had community workshops and we held 3 of them. Thanks to the Elon Community Church for providing that space. We held those from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. each of those nights. We had small group discussions, presentations, and the purpose was really to develop consensus about ideas for the future of downtown. And Dan is going to talk about the vision and where we're headed with the plan.
Okay, thank you. So looking at North Williamson and West Lebanon, we looked at 3 different options and tested them in those workshops. And the Park One Side option for North Williams was the one that was, I would say, almost unanimously supported in the workshops. So that requires to remove parking from the town side of Williamson to expand the sidewalk out. There's no change to the side of on Elon University, so that saves a bunch of money and keeps that sidewalk open, you know, while the project is underway, maybe. You're gonna have to repair and replace the underground infrastructure on both of these streets. I think mostly on Williamson, but I think some on Lebanon, but I know there's some money budgeted in the out years, I think, for Williamson. So that's kind of already in the works. We're using bulb outs to shorten the crossing distances. This is the amount of time that you're actually, as a pedestrian, in between the curbs, right? So the less time you're walking from one side of the street to the other, it really reduces accidents and potential for conflict. So this plan does that. Of course, adding new street trees to provide shade and bollards to separate the traffic. You see them in that black dashed line there to separate the traffic on Williamson from the new dining. And to make that happen, you're going to have to take control of Williamson Street from the state, take it out of the DOT system for maybe from Haggard to the town hall where we are now. Currently, they won't let you put bollards or tables there. You have to be 6 feet for moving traffic. So to make this work, and that's a pretty common thing. Let me just explain, that's not a big deal. The state is always happy to take parts of roadways out of their system, but it does put you on the hook for future maintenance of those 2 blocks. But if you're building a new streetscape like this one, future maintenance is, 20 years down the road. So if you're going to take over a road, the time to do it is after you've changed and freshened everything up, not when it's really in need. We create a loading zone somewhere in North Williamson to serve the buildings on that street. New plaza, of course, the you have the new plaza on College Ave. You'll see this plan sort of bridges it across into the university and ask them to pull some of their dining of that dining hall out to make a sort of town gown dining area across Williamson. And lastly, to improve the rail crossing. We heard in all the meetings, people are not very excited about the rail crossing and the safety issues there and the lack of a sidewalk and curb and all these things. So this is what it looks like in section now. And this is if you cut a line right through it. So you end up with a 19.5-foot sidewalk along the building frontage, new trees at the curb line, 2 12-foot travel lanes, which is pretty generous. I mean, the highway is 13, and then an 8-foot parallel parking on the university side. And basically from that curb back, that no changes to that 8-foot, 6 and 4-foot section in their wall and everything on the university side. We're not proposing to change anything over there. At any point, if you have questions, I can stop. I'm happy to stop. This is a rendering of what it might look like. So you can see the street on the left, the bollards running down the length, and the new trees, dining, umbrellas. This is sort of the preferred cafe mode now, with buildings up against the or I mean, excuse me, tables up against the building and others along the curb, so you can walk through it. Instead of what you see in some towns where they come out 10 feet and fence it all off and you're left with just a little bit of sidewalk. Well, the beautiful thing about waiters and waitresses is they have feet, so they can, if someone's walking down the sidewalk, they can move out of the way. You know, you don't really need to fence that area in. So this is sort of the future, if this plan is implemented. And on West Lebanon, again here, it's taken off the parallel parking on the building side of the street and narrowing the travel lanes a little bit. The roadway now, I think there's 16-foot lanes out there. That is just gigantic. Considering that there's hardly any traffic on this street that isn't just looking for parking, basically. So this one, you end up with a 20-foot wide sidewalk with a tree well along the edge, a 22-foot or 25-foot roadway, and the parallel parking where it is today. So again, basically from where it says tree well on that section, or where you see the tree, everything to the left of that is, you know, no change. So really, you're just rebuilding the sidewalk here in this plan. Onto the rail crossing. This is an example of what I think is a super well done rail crossing from the state of Florida. This is what, you know, in areas like this one where you have a high volume of pedestrian traffic, this would really make clear to everyone, where do you walk, where are the cars, where are the trains, really make it a lot safer, a lot better. And there is money, federal money. I just heard on NPR on the way up, $2 billion to improve railroad safety. So, you know, this might qualify. There's a lot of grant money out there now, still from the Infrastructure Act. A lot of our clients are getting RISE grants and railroad grants. I mean, there's a lot of money out there right now. If you were ever thinking about hiring a temporary grant writer, now's the time to do it. So here's what that would look like.
At me.
Huh?
That everybody looked at me because I have been hounding Rich about this.
Yeah, this is the time for sure. And so the top drawing is the way it is today. The bottom drawing is what we're proposing, which is extending the brick out, and then there's a concrete sort of pad that the rail people like to have. So bricks shift around, concrete doesn't, where the rail actually crosses. A little bit of a buffer there of a little grass median, and then this came later in the process, but what we think would be really unique for Elon is more and more people are riding this train. Now there's 5 a day between Raleigh and Charlotte. And I've ridden it, and I don't think there is a town. You know, we forget that that's a view that a lot of people are seeing of your town is from the side of the rail car. And so what we recommended here was, and it reduces your maintenance costs. We were talking about maintenance and these monthly fees for the Porta-Johns and all that. Well, I talked to Rich, and you guys actually mow this railroad right away. The town does. And if we could partner with the university, maybe some students, I don't know if they have horticulture over there, I don't know. But certainly they have some community service to plant wildflowers along the two block long length there, so that when people come through, they see what's on the right, that picture on the right, except continuing the whole time through Elon. And maybe, I don't even know if you can get permission from the railroad to put a sign there that people can, so they know what town they're in when they see it, that says, you know, Elon. I haven't seen that before, so I'm guessing they probably forbid it, but maybe that's an option. But improving the rail crossing and getting some flowers there would be a great first step.
Can I have a quick question at that point? Because as I look at the pictures, you know, and that's a perfect one right there.
Okay, leave there.
It's this idea that everything is just flat, and it's just not.
Yeah.
It's just not anywhere near that. And are you implying that we would have to change the whole streetscape so
No,
that it would
no.
go up and down differently?
No.
Or that we would have to change the levels, or is that just because that's the way it's drawn?
It's because our SketchUp artist doesn't know how to make the hump.
And he also didn't use ADA curve. That's okay.
Yeah, you're right, right. So we have a young lady that helps us make these beautiful renderings. I still draw with a pencil. I'm not very good at SketchUp. I'm a Luddite. And so good catch on the railroad. We can definitely fix that on the ADA compliant piece. But this is kind of what it would look like. You know, which is a much nicer experience for all those students and residents that have to cross that track every day.
I'm just gonna ask that question then one more time then. With that hill
Yeah.
that is there,
Mhm.
everything can be done just the way you had.
Yes, it just ramps up. You know, what it doesn't show is bricks could definitely be laid on a 2% grade, no problem. All that can definitely happen. It's just, it's very complicated to do topography in a SketchUp model if you're not.
Well, it's just that you make things look wider that just don't look that wide in reality, and that's what I'm just trying to get to a place.
No, that's
where-
the actual width of the right of way is 60 feet.
And obviously, this is a sketch, but obviously didn't have cross arms, which that's the biggest concern is the crossing arms.
Yeah, we should
Those would have to be
add
moved
those
back.
too.
We can add as much detail as we need. I think the point is that
Yeah, the concept.
the concept is when the rail comes through, you want to have the concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part is level. The rail, and that's where you have the concrete that makes it a flush crossing, basically.
Yeah,
So that you don't have the trip hazards and, I mean, you still have the rail there, but it's a much, I'm sure you've seen that from you guys
Oh, I agree.
in other cities and places.
But it's railroad property, so the railroad pays for it.
Probably not.
you'd have to work out some agreement with them. And as I said in the public meeting, we are working for another client, Clayton, which has rail going right through downtown. And we were told by their head of, I forget what that lady's title was. Some big shot that came up and visited us from the rail that they have a new chairman of the board of the North Carolina Railroad, which owns this right away. And he has instructed them, to be more open to improving crossings for pedestrians and bicyclists and to be more cognizant of the fact that other people use these crossings. And if you look around North Carolina for the last 100 years, they have not cared at all. And so this is also maybe a window. Maybe this gentleman is CEO for a while, maybe it's just a 2-year term, but while you have this person to try and talk to the railroad about this, they're gonna be hesitant at first, for sure. And there'll be a lot of legal and design challenges, but this is possible. I mean, we showed you the one in Florida. This is 100% possible, and in many other states is in fact how it's done in urban areas. Not out in the country or someplace where there's not a lot of pedestrians, but you could put up a pedestrian counter here and have a number for them. That says I'm making this up, we have 2,000 people a day that cross this track, we need to make it safer. And I would argue if I was in the room arguing with the railroad for this, I wouldn't be arguing on aesthetic concerns. I'd be arguing strictly on safety concerns. That's your best shot.
We have had issues in the past,
Yeah,
safety.
yeah.
Very much.
Right now, there's just only one side you really could safely go across. If you're on the east side, you're taking your risk in your own hands.
Yes, sir. So it is possible. It's just a question of, do you get the right engineer from the railroad in the room at the right time, at the right, chairman that wants to make some changes like this and find some money. Although I don't think this would be terribly expensive. It's really just sidewalk and some concrete. But I don't know what sort of requirements they're gonna throw on you. It's, I don't know that answer. Now, that's it for the streetscape. If anybody had any questions about that, we're gonna move on. Yes, sir.
Once you remove the both side parking on the Williamson.
Not both sides, just one.
Just one side.
Yeah, so one that, how many spots you gonna do?
I think you lose 8 spaces. And we showed, I can show you, let me go back. Well, it's hard for me to reach, but on Lebanon, when if you're coming here and turn right on the university side, there's an area there that's just grass that could be parking, that if it matched the side on the other Lebanon, you would gain those 8 spaces back. We counted, I think, 9 or 12 maybe there. I can look at the plan. So it would be, you would gain them right back just across the street. That's something you'd also have to discuss with the railroad, but it would only mimic what is on the other side of Lebanon. So they've already allowed it once. I don't know why they would again. And it's just car storage, you're not putting public space there.
And they've recently approved extending parking on West Lebanon further out. So, I mean, we have that relationship with the railroad that
Yeah,
it's always a trial, but.
we've got some hoops to jump through, but my experience in other towns is that they don't really have a problem with parking in the right of way. They get more concerned about buildings and public uses where you're gonna have a lot of public, like if you were gonna put a big plaza there or something. Now, if you charge for it, they're gonna talk to you about their piece of the pie. They have brought that up in the meeting in Clayton, that if we charge for parking on the land that is in the railroad right away, they'd like to talk about how do they get a portion of those fees.
They already do, they lease it to us.
Yeah. You know, you'll have to just meet with them and they'll have a whole bunch of issues. So any other questions then about the streetscape? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on.
The parking in front of the church would stay as it is, right?
Yes, changing nothing beyond College Avenue.
The plaza.
Yeah, nothing changes beyond there. All right, so I'm afraid this thing showed up on my screen and it's blocking. I can't read everything, but make pedestrian friendly improvements throughout downtown. This is what we heard but especially Williamson. Increase parking. This is sort of the same thing that Jason talked about in the list that the residents wanted, just to make it clear. More pedestrian friendly, increase parking options, add more housing where possible, more retail. We met with several people who are potential retailers that wanted to be downtown and could not find a spot. You know, that's a great position to be in. Not many towns are in that position. Identify sites maybe for a potential library or museum. Add more outdoor public spaces for events and meeting folks. And we were still ending up with COVID there. So COVID resilience. And then try to link the downtown better with the university. So all things we heard from the public. And so we looked around for where those sites might be that we could look for some of to add some of this new retail and residential. And we came up with 3 sites, 2 on Holt Avenue and 1.
And maybe you're gonna say it all next, but to be clear, these sites were with the approval of the property owners.
Yes, we spoke to every property owner to be able to show this. We do that all the time. We are not a firm like the last master plan you had where we do things to people's property without first consulting with them. Because the last thing we want is a property owner sitting in this chair tonight saying, first time I've seen this, right? So we don't do that. We spoke to everyone who has an interest in these properties we're proposing something for. So the first 2 rather here on Holt Avenue. So this was to create a site for festivals and events that, you know, it's not easy to close down Williamson Street, I'm sure. Maybe not that great on Lebanon because it's one-sided retail, not, you know, it's always hard to do fun events when there's only one side going. And so we looked at Holt and we used the sites to create a new public square, basically more or less in the center of the street. That's the red brick shape you see there. So it creates a new square and a street space for events by leveraging existing town-owned land. This is, some of it is on the piece of property that you were talking about earlier in the meeting.
I need electricity on it.
Well, there'll be. Yeah, you'll need more than electricity, gas, water, everything. And what we did here, we heard over and over about parking. So what we did here was use the full right of way to do head-in parking on Holt to create a bunch more on-street parking spaces, similar to the head-in parking on Lebanon, but now not against the tracks. We took the off-street parking under the backs of the buildings. If you see both buildings there have a little sketch of parking underneath it. So you would access some off-street parking under the buildings. You don't want to have the edge of a street be for the storage of cars, especially in a town that needs more retail and restaurant space. So we tucked those under the back. And then we remove, it may have already been done, I'm not sure, but we would encourage you to remove the parking requirement for the first 20 or so units of new housing in downtown. And there are plenty of examples across the street in Raleigh on Hillsborough Street. We did it the first 16 units, no parking, and now there's 7 of those buildings directly across the street from NC State on Hillsborough Street. If you're any NC State grads here, when you go look for those smaller buildings that cover the whole lot. And they're very popular with students because they can walk and it's close. So let's talk about Site 1, which is owned by the university, now 2 university lots and yours in the middle. At the time we were doing this, the old Dennis lot was owned privately. So the option here on Site 1 is to do 8,000 square feet of retail. The students currently meet in say it again?
Tap house.
In the tap house, and the university folks told us that the students really like that because It comes without all the rules of having a meeting on campus, even though it's university owned, it's off campus, so they can be a little bit more creative in the types of fun they have there. So this keeps that 5,000 square foot space. Option 1 gets rid of that, or option 2 says no, the university decides they don't want that space, maybe they're gonna put it somewhere else, so then you get 13,000 square feet of retail. And then option 3 is to keep 13,000 square foot of retail on the first floor, and then when I went to school, some of the most popular places to eat were called Rathskellers, and they're typically in the basement, you know, so this would be a 10,000 square foot basement, restaurant, bar, student space, you know, called the Rathskeller, or whatever they want to call it. Under here. And you end up, I think, with 16, or how many units of parking? It's not on the slide, I forgot to put it. I think it ends up being like 20 units of new housing there, 4 bedrooms in each unit, so you end up with 80 students living on that little site. And they can all walk, they don't need to have a car and clog up your roads, all that stuff.
Or they can park on campus.
Or they could park on campus, or they could pay to lease one of the few off-street spaces, right? Those tucked under the back, if you're, you know, if you're really attached to your car and money is not an issue for you, you know, you could lease a space from the developer for you to store in your car. As I mentioned, these are 3 examples here, right across from NC State. These are 16 units, no parking. Each unit has 4 bedrooms, so it's, you know, 64 units in each of these buildings, and they're quite popular. And I can tell you, we did a lot of pro forma analysis of this when I did a separate project for Hillsborough Streets, and these things are very, very attractive to developers if they don't have to provide parking. They're very attractive. And this is an example of what the new what students live in today. Very different from my time, but 4 bedrooms and then, you know, shared bathrooms. Each one has their own bathroom, and you share the kitchen and the sort of living space, sort of like little pods. And they average about 1,500 square feet a unit. So now looking across the street at Site 2, which is wholly owned by the university. They had originally, while we were under this process, had proposed a new office building there that I think, I'm not sure why, but I think that got put on hold. And so we look at it as a potential site for a public library on the first 2 floors. You could get a 25,000 square foot library around a public space. And the university could still have 30,000 square feet of office on the top 2 floors. By the way, these are all 4 stories tall, none taller than 4 stories. And 32 off-street spaces tucked under the back, and 22 new head-in spaces along Lebanon and Holt. And then the other option there is, if the library doesn't happen, is to have 10,000 square feet of ground floor retail, 30 suite style apartments on the top 3 floors, just like I described earlier for the other side. So, yeah, you could have 200 plus or minus approaching 200 students living just in this block on Holt Street. That would bring a lot of life and activity to what is now a not very active street. And, you know, if the university, you could combine these 2 and have 10,000 square feet of retail on the ground floor and 30,000 square feet of offices above. You know, we're just trying to show you different options here. It'll ultimately be up to the university working with a developer, I guess, to figure out what makes the most sense given your market. And then we were asked to look, and I should say, the Site 3 came in at the last moment. We did not talk to these property owners, but this was just a quick last sketch. Somebody asked me, well, what if we developed that one piece that's not included in here? And it becomes basically, you know, the same sort of model. 16,000 square feet of ground floor retail and potentially 42 suite apartments. And if you add that in, now you're talking about close to, you know, 350 students living here.
And that landowner was supportive of that?
That is the one we did not talk to. We did not speak to the landowner on Site 3 because it came right at the very end of our process. We were asked by, I think, Rich or somebody, can you show us a quick sketch of what that might look like? And so
Is there only one landowner there?
I don't know that answer.
No.
It's actually 2.
Yeah, so I don't know that answer, but we were just asked to quickly show what's the dream if this street completely developed out with this new head-in parking around the plaza? What would it look like? And this is what it, you know, one option of what it might look like. So I could be.
Comments that came up in a lot of the discussions was the fact that our downtown is all one-sided.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we only have uses on one side of each of those streets. Holt is a street that is essentially mostly residential or a little bit of office, then we could actually create a two-sided downtown street.
Yeah. And that's,
3 property owners in
Yeah.
that area.
yeah, so that was brought up, like I said, in one of the last public meetings, I think. Can we just take a quick look? So I'll be honest, we did not reach out to those property owners, and if there's an issue, you certainly can take it out of the plan. We don't want
No,
that.
I think it's great to just show also just the options, right? Like
Yeah.
this is like an additional opportunity.
Yeah, if you could get those 3 landowners to cooperate, and I don't know how old those buildings are, if they've recouped their investment, or, you know, if they're still making payments, there's lots of issues there, but this would end up with I think a great college street, you know, you'd have retail on both sides, restaurants, stuff like that, and then a public plaza in the middle that you could easily close this street for welcome back festivals or summer town-led festivals. You could have stuff in the plaza, you could have tents in the street, and still have lots of room for people sitting out at cafes and doing whatever they want along this street. I think this, you know, I was surprised at how well this worked when I was sketching it out. I thought it was gonna be a lot harder to make this work. Okay, so this is what it looks like, looking as if I was on the roof here, or maybe a little bit higher than the roof, looking down Holt Street. So you get a sense of the scale, and forget about the architecture. We're not architects. We just draw boxes with windows. That's, you know, no pride of authorship there. But that's what that might look like. Here's a view now looking at the plaza with 2 little pavilions in there that could be, you know, that could be your beer garden that you just talked about, could be little coffee shop, could be whatever. You know, probably tough to do today. But if you had 350 students living there and a bunch of retail on the ground floor, you know, it might make market sense then. They could be outdoor permanent bathrooms, you know, whatever you decide. You see the brick goes across with bollards, so you're at the same level. There's no curb in the plaza. It's really easy to do an event there. And you would, based on your earlier discussion, when we did Fayetteville Street in Raleigh, I was the director of urban design in Raleigh when we opened up Fayetteville Street. And a lot of people don't know, but each of those seating boxes next to it has 220 volts of power, about 250 amps. It has water, it has electricity. Some of them even have natural gas. So if you wanted to do a fire pit, let's say in the beer garden in the winter, like November when it's cold, you know, you could do all that stuff. If you pre-install all that, when you do a streetscape on an area that you're planning to have events, it makes events so much easier for everybody. And we designed Fayetteville Street to be closed all the time for events. Big one coming up this weekend, the Bluegrass Festival. You'll see it operating in its prime if you come to town. Then this is we call it the Town Gown Plaza. So it keeps the design that you already have for College Avenues Plaza. It creates an outdoor dining, as I mentioned, on the university side, keeps their historic gate, but removes the wall about 10 feet or so on either side of it. So that you can walk right through the crosswalks. There is a cafeteria there, and they do have outdoor dining. It's just tucked behind it inside the university, where you would never know it was there if you were walking along on Williamson. Creates that bulb out we mentioned to shorten that crossing distance. So now it's only 24 feet. The crosswalk is 24 feet long instead of 16 plus 12 is 38. So that really cuts that conflict in half. It adds up. We met with the Reverend to talk about that white box is a little pavilion, so that you could have outdoor, it could function as part of the market, right? The farmer's market that's out there could be a little place to have outdoor music when you're having events, could have a myriad of uses. They were open to us showing it, but if you decided to build it, you'd have to enter in some negotiations with the church to do it. But that sort of brackets in that public plaza. One of the things that public plazas suffer from is if they're not enclosed, they don't really feel like a place, you know? And so that would help to feel it, you know, with the buildings at the university, the pavilion, and the university's building on the corner with the pizza shop. Now all this area will start to feel enclosed, like you've arrived at a real place. And this creates hookups for future food trucks. So when you do events, you know, along that street curb edge, it's good to have a little box that has water and electricity in it, and even somewhere in town, a grease dump. so that they don't dump the grease from their fryers right into your sewer system, you know, a grease trap. We've made one of those. And it adds public art opportunities for public art near and around the plaza. So people did mention they'd like to see some more public art. Any questions about this? Alrighty. And this would be done not as a separate project, but as part of the streetscape project, sort of where that top crosswalk is where the streetscape project begins and then comes to where we are today. So it's about a block and a half long total. But it doesn't impact your design for the plaza on College Street, doesn't change any, you know, changes nothing about that. So we're not asking you to do any changes there. And then here now is a rendering of what that looks like. You can see a food truck park there. You know, the pavilion is just shown as a little white shed roof, but it could be anything, you know, whatever architecture suits the town. And if you want to, you know, brick it up and make it look like Elon University, you could do that, whatever you want to do. You see the walls removed from the little gate so people can go right across the crosswalk. And we like to pave across because that sends a signal to the driver that something's different here. You need to slow down and be on the lookout for pedestrians. So it sends a big visual clue to drivers that this is a place to expect pedestrians. And then this was the town hall site, which is site number 4, option number 4, basically where we're sitting today. This proposes that you buy the lot. I guess it's that way, right? Mr. Brown indicated that he would entertain offers for that lot. It's a pretty big one. Goes pretty far back. Gives you a lot of options. So this option looks at building a new town hall, about 12,750 square feet. In the box that's labeled town hall, and then in the one fronting on Trollinger, that could have an 18,000 square foot library, conference center, museum, whatever use you want to have on that ground floor there. And then basically you sell the air over these public uses to apartment developer. And these apartments we targeted not at students. So these are 750 square foot non-student apartments on 3 floors above these uses, above town hall. You know, there'd be apartments above us right now if we were meeting there in 10 years. It's not uncommon. A lot of towns are doing it. It comes with 120 off-street spaces, enough to serve about 80 apartments. So extra would be, if you assume one and a half units or 1.5 spaces per unit. Of course, town parking there. 32 new on-street spaces. So we recreate on Trollinger a row of head-in parking along that street. And then a new public plaza and clock tower right at the corner here. It doesn't have to be a clock tower, it can be a piece of public art, some sort of symbol of the town on that corner, and a new little plaza that could be used by the museum or the conference center or by the town for events that you all do that you want to bring residents to. And the beauty of this is that the tax that the 3 floors of apartments over town hall will help pay for the new town hall and the conference center, right? They're going to be paying taxes that can help pay for the ground floor uses.
The veterinary office, they weren't interested in any sort of redevelopment?
No, we did, you see that thing that's labeled new road, actually, it's not a new road, it's a cross-access agreement that allows people to come off of Williamson and drive, you know, through the parking lot into the parking behind it. But we've officially I don't think we officially tested that idea with them. Just that little cross-access agreement. You don't need it, right? You could certainly serve this whole apartment from Trollinger and I forget the name of that street that's going this way on the left. Holt. Oh, so it goes across the tracks. Okay, Holt. You could certainly serve this whole development from there. That's basically not a problem, but someone had asked us, well, it would be nice to be able to come off Williamson. So we just showed this little potential cross-access.
So we didn't ask them about redeveloping?
No, we were told that they just spent a whole bunch of money redoing the inside of their practice. And so we assumed that they would not be interested, but we could talk to them. So
Interconnectivity.
okay. So this is, again, these are, a lot of people told us, you know, we might want to live downtown, but not in the student zone. So, you know, this is sort of physically separated from the downtown by the railroad tracks, which is, you know, sort of psychologically maybe enough. And you could control this by controlling the size and configuration of the apartments. And the mayor, I'm not sure, but I think you said you could do it also where you could limit it to non-students.
Yeah, student is not a protected class.
Okay.
So you can say no student housing, but then you do limit. And Bob might know too, I'm not sure, but from my understanding, then if there was like, let's say that there's a 55-year-old person living there and they decide they want to go back to school, they are then ineligible to live there. So you do run into that, but student is not a protected class. So you can say this is student housing or this is non-student housing.
And I think, we heard from lots of folks, they wouldn't, after they retire, become empty nesters, whatever, they wouldn't mind living downtown near all these amenities and restaurants, but that there's really no place for them.
I know a lot of empty nesters in larger cities that are doing this.
Yeah.
They're like, we want to live downtown where you can get to restaurants, where you can walk, where you can do all of this.
Yeah, and in fact, a lot of universities are developing on-campus housing that way, that can take advantage of it, have the big performing arts center, so they can, buy a season ticket to whatever happens at the performing arts center. They can go to all the visiting lectures and all the interesting stuff to sort of keep their mind engaged and stuff and learn. So we're seeing that's pretty popular around the country. Some of them are built directly sort of on the edge of a campus, right on the edge, and some are just across the street, but we see a lot of those being developed.
Are any of them developed right next to train tracks? That's what I like, because the train goes by.
Yeah, for sure. There is housing throughout downtown Raleigh that directly abuts the train tracks. And I can tell you, I lived in one of those for 5 years. After a while, you don't even hear it. You don't even hear it.
Yeah, I grew up at the end of a street right by a railroad track. You don't hear it.
Yeah.
I also. That's kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, the one thing that you do here, and this will be part of the rail crossing, they make a special crossing where they close off, the arms come down to prevent pedestrians from crossing too. And if you don't have that special crossing, they still have to blare the horn. Right, and that we do hear about, if they have to blare that horn at, midnight or whatever
Do
time.
they know where the pedestrian crossings are versus not, like when the train comes through?
They know where these special gates are or not, right? Because we look to put one in downtown Raleigh because there's one particular crossing that is surrounded by about 700 apartments, and we got a lot of complaints. And we talked to the rail and they said, yeah, we can fix this where we don't have to blow the horn, but this is the sort of crossing gate you need that doesn't just stop cars moving. A gate comes down and stops pedestrian moving, and maybe there's even a little fence for a short distance so they can't run across.
Yeah, like at amusement parks.
Yeah, yes, similar.
I mean, living in Elon is like an amusement park, is it not?
That's right.
Okay, so there are other options here, town hall, or it could be retail on that site, facing Trollinger. Or it could be, if you did apartments over town hall and everything, and made them a little smaller, you could get up to 115 units there. And the good news is, our market study showed there's a lot of demand for apartments in Elon. I forget what the number was, but it was over that, I think. And financing wise, nobody's financing office. Still a lot of uncertainty about work from home and how that's going to play out over the next couple of years, but there is financing out there. For apartments. I still see a lot of those in the pipeline in different places we're working. This is an example of a mixed-use development over a library. It's in Milwaukee called the Good Hope. It's got 65 mixed-income apartments, a maker influencer space, a teen space, community room, children's space. Lots of potential options for that ground floor. Here's some examples, because I know people are going to say, I've never in my life seen apartments over a town hall. Well, go on up to Morganton, because their town hall has lots of apartments over it in an old textile mill. And the other one is in College Park, Maryland. We looked for one in a college town where they have apartments and other uses above their town hall. This is now looking back at sort of what the scale of that might be. And, again, the clock and the architecture, don't worry so much about that. But this gives you a sense of what that scale might be, sort of looking cattywampus this direction. And I think that would essentially, given that downtown doesn't have a lot of ways to expand, it certainly cannot expand on the university side. We showed you what the expansion towards Holt looks like, and this is really it can't expand, onto the church property. So this is your other option, right? And so we wanted to show what might it look like if we expanded to the east in downtown. And this kind of gives you a sense of what that scale might look like. And then this is an overall now for flying above the communications building, looking down the tracks towards Holt and heading, I guess that's south, right? West. Heading west to give you a sense of what all these changes might look like together. So it has the new streetscape, it has the planted railroad and the two new developments on Holt Street. And the new plaza for the town gown plaza there, to give you a sense of what that looks like. So that might seem like a lot, and yeah, I guess it is, but we don't expect all of it to happen anytime soon, or even it takes a long time to do these public-private deals. So it's a lot of negotiation involved in that. We have some experience doing that. We helped to negotiate and develop the city of Myrtle Beach. Has sold the air over their library and children's museum, for apartments, and has an RFP with 2 developers out there competing to be able to build it. That's really becoming more and more quite common.
I see my colleagues here saw the skate park up there.
Yes, so we did show, we heard from some folks, they'd like to see something for the younger folks and residents in the summer and students to do. And so on a little piece of undeveloped property at the corner of Fulton College, we did show a little skate park. As an amenity for the skaters, and if you're like my son, the scooter riders, I take them to the skate park all the time. The skaters don't like the scooter guys, it turns out, but
You're talking about where the little parking lot is for the town center? That's what you're talking about?
I'm talking about the corner of Holt and
Are you
College.
saying college or are you saying a block down?
College.
Like a little yellow circle at the top right.
Yeah, there's a parking lot there right now.
Parking lot. Yeah, it's a parking lot right now.
Maybe I can move oh, there you go. You can see that it's right there. See the little hand?
This is as long as you said it was college. I was surprised by that.
Yeah, it's a piece of property currently owned by the university. Doesn't seem like, unless they assembled some more property, that's pretty tough to redevelop
There's a
that.
parking lot right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so this would be small. It's not big. You don't need a lot of space for, it's basically a swimming pool, kind of concrete swimming pool where they can do their, I don't know. I'm not a skateboarder. But it's basically a concrete swimming pool. All right, so that gives you the big vision, what it might all look like. Let's close up talking about the implementation plan. These are the 4 we think key recommendations. Complete the North Williamson and West Lebanon streetscape and infrastructure improvements. Look at all 3 of these development sites. One you totally own, one you have an interest in where your beer garden will be, and then the other one is totally owned by university. And as we mentioned, the little site 3 was owned by 3 different property owners, but you have what I think is a market study by one of the best market analysts. Jessica is one of the best. She works for apartment developers. They trust her numbers. So pick one that you think you can undertake. It's a lot. It's a lot of staff time and a lot of effort to put an RFP on the street for a public-private partnership, negotiate development agreements. It's a pretty big lift. So, our advice is don't try to do all 3. Look for the most market-ready feasible one and begin discussions on it. Lessen student parking and traffic demand in downtown. We heard from a lot of folks in almost every meeting that the students don't care about tickets. They'll park their cars anywhere. It makes downtown difficult for retailers and restaurateurs because these cars are just scattered all around without regard to the need of other customers. And so this is, I know you have a pedestrian and I think bicycle plan underway. That's one way to lessen student parking is give them other options on how to get to class, bikes, walking, remove parking from future development sites so the cars never show up. That's the Holt Street redevelopment. And build out a bike network that allows students to have another option. And then lastly, partner with the university, create a downtown that benefits everyone. We heard from lots of folks about the small theater or lecture hall in the communications building being rarely used. You know, it could be your summer movie series, a comedy series, maybe bluegrass, I don't know, be used as part of festivals to have entertainment in it. But that's a wonderful resource to have right on your main street to deliver customers for restaurants and coffee shops and dessert after every event. In the summer when the university is not really programming it. I'm sure they need it during the school year. But maybe there's a nighttime series or something. They seemed open when we mentioned it to them.
Well, the university does a really great movie series, and when you go, I think I've been the only family in the theater at least 3 times. But I think it's just not
Well, then I would add,
well known, and there's so much opportunity there.
Yeah.
You look at how many people, go to the movie theater generally, go to Graham
Yeah.
Cinema, and there's free movies right here, and sometimes they even have free popcorn.
yeah, and lots of other things that people would be interested in, small live music, maybe acoustic music, maybe a comedian series, I don't know what, but most towns of your size that we work in do not have that amenity that delivers, that has the potential. I don't know, how many seats do you think that is, 150?
230, I think.
Okay,
It was over
200.
yeah, so imagine now, I don't know, I'll make this up, 20 nights a summer. 200 people are coming out of that theater looking for a drink, a coffee, maybe a dinner before the show. I mean, we often tell towns that make the decision that they want to be a dining and entertainment focused downtown, because retail is so tough now with Amazon. Everybody's been trained through COVID. I mean, I have boxes show up at my house all the time. And so, they say, oh, well, are we gonna have to subsidize all these restaurants? I say, no, expand your theater, subsidize the theater more to do more nights. And that is a subsidy to the restaurant because it's delivering everybody that's hungry and looking for something to do.
And the theater shows amazing movies, and they're really good about getting ones that I think people would be interested in, from families
Yep.
to all ages. I think the main thing is just communication, and I know this has been an issue for a long time, but the ticker tape that we have.
Oh, yeah, love it. Love it.
I know that there's, a contract, I believe it's with Reuters to do that, but at some point, I really would like there to be conversations between the university and the town for utilizing that for cross promotion of university events
Yep.
and town events, because I really don't feel like it serves the purpose that we really need. Obviously, it's connected directly to the TV station, the news station that's going on there, but I think it could better serve everybody if there was more town gown information that is provided through that ticker tape.
That was actually in the agreement.
I thought so.
It was in the agreement. We had that discussion. I sat right there in that chair. So it's in the minutes that the university did agree that we could promote events on that ticker.
Yeah, and so every town that starts new events and things like this, I don't know how long the movie series been there, they always have trouble getting the word out. So, I mean, one thing I would say is, you got to build you got to have someone that cares about a mailing list, keeps it up to date and builds it, that has that, every public meeting you hold, someone should be shining in with their email, and someone in here, intern, whoever, should be assigned to add that to the mailing list. I mean, that's how you get the word out about stuff like this.
I personally invited 50 people to over 50 people to tonight's meeting.
Yeah.
And clearly there were 50 people there.
Okay. Well, I mean, maybe they don't want to hear me talk, but if they saw a good, Bruce Willis movie, that might be a lot more.
Taylor Swift's concert movie.
There you go. Might be a lot more entertaining than Jason and I.
Great point is that, how many people know when the next home football game is in Elon?
It's this weekend.
How would you know that?
Well, because it's parents' weekend and I pay attention.
You do, but if you drove through town, you'd be none the wiser to know.
Yeah.
That's gonna be happening. And I think that's where we have to work together to promote what both of us have to offer.
Yeah.
The university offers is what the town offers. We just gotta work smarter.
Yeah. And, it takes a while, right? I mean, let's say you decide to have a movie series this summer. It's not going to be the blockbuster this summer. You got to build that over time and rewire people's brains to think, oh, there's something on that side of the road I can do that's fun with my kids or my grandkids or whoever, that I could take them to see a You know, I just took my son to a puppet show, the Paper Hand Puppet Intervention, man. It's the killer greatest puppet show out there, and I don't see why they couldn't play here. That's a really great family, event full of kids. I mean, all kinds of things like that are out there. You just have to have someone in charge with programming it and promoting it. And whether that's a person at the university or a person at the town or some shared position, I don't know. But promotion is key to these
That
events.
sounds like a job for the chief of staff.
I'll leave that up to you all to decide. So that's what that statement means, partner with the university to create a downtown, that benefits everyone, right? We heard a lot of discussion in public meetings that I don't go downtown, it's just for the students, during student time, it's blah, 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 all this stuff. So you really gotta try to create some events and things, and I know you do, for families and folks here in Elon, non-students to use, and let them feel like it's their downtown 12 months out of the year, not just 3 or 4. I like to say in all of our projects, downtown is everybody's second neighborhood. And they have to feel like it is their neighborhood. And of course, outdoor dining, right, along the street with lots of people out there. Now you go down the street, you don't really see people if you don't time it at the right, change of class or whatever. So my experience with downtowns is when you see people out dining, laughing, having fun, all of a sudden people change their mindset about what downtown is, right? And who it's for. So this is some more, detail. I don't know how far you want me to go, but this first bullet is about investigating the cost of removing that right away from the NCDOT, as I mentioned earlier. The second bullet is about grant opportunities, which I mentioned. There's lots of money out there now for sustainability, pedestrian improvements, rail improvements. Again, and I think Rich already has met with the railroad, but continue meeting with the railroad, maybe show them this plan, start planting these seats early so that when you come with requests later, they're not surprised by it. Begin discussions with the university on this town gown plaza, and how you're going to activate, your side of it. What events are going to be held there? Do we need a little band shell market pavilion? I don't know. It depends on what you're planning on doing there. And then begin discussions with the church if you decide that you do need it, to get an easement for that little pavilion. They're open at least to discussing it. No promises, but open to discussion. Meet with stakeholders. A lot of the surprise to us that a lot of the downtown business owners we met with were okay with charging for parking. They were all right with meters on Lebanon and Williamson, mainly because they think it encourages turnover and prevents so many students from parking there all the time. Kimley Horn, there's lots of firms out there that are experts in parking that can develop fee options and costs for what. Now you just get 1 meter per block, right? So you're talking about maybe buying 3-4 meters. They're not cheap, but the revenue can help pay for them and then over time generate new revenue. Your wayfinding system is great, except for one thing. It doesn't really denote what's public and private parking very well. You have a great system that brings people in and says downtown. I saw it on my way in. We just encourage you to expand that to make clear, as you're inviting all these new folks to come to these events and things we're talking about, that they know where they can park. Because the last thing you want to do is invite everybody down and have someone ticketed or towed. Those are people that don't come back. And I know we made that mistake in Raleigh. We didn't say what was public and private. And when we started hosting our first events, tens of thousands of people came and parked where they weren't supposed to, and a lot of them got towed. And boy, I got drugged across the coals at our conference table. And even though I wasn't in charge of parking, I got yelled at for it because I was in charge downtown. So making clear where they can park is critical. And then lastly, part of that discussion, meet with the university and NCRR to confirm the potential addition of new parking, like I mentioned on East Lebanon. If you're going to make outdoor dining a big part of your urban design plan, you better make it sure that it's easy to get an outdoor dining permit. So I don't know what the system is here, but you should reform that if there are any issues about how to do that. Again, it's a story I told. It used to take about 4 months in Raleigh to get an outdoor dining permit for some reason. So we changed it from 8 weeks to 8 hours. You come in on Monday, you submit your application, on Tuesday, you have your permit. That's how easy, right? If we want people to do something in downtown, like doing events, holding movies at the communications, having outdoor cafes, whatever it is, we are responsible to make it easy for them to do those things, right? That's why I talked about replacing all this infrastructure for events. You want to make it easy. You can't say, hey, we want you to hold these great events on Holt Street, and now you got to rent 3 generators, 8 porta potties, you got to get special lighting, you got to, you don't want to do that. And then, at some point, if you decide, work with the engineering firm to implement the streetscape design vision, replace the necessary infrastructure, paid parking system, that's the time to do it, and all the other technical details. We're conceptual designers, we are not engineers. All right. So, maybe in the meeting with the university, now they own both of those properties on either side of you on Holt Street, the old dentist office and the tap house. So now it used to be a 3-person public-private partnership. Now it's just you and them. That site, meet with them to talk about how they see it. Meet with the private property owners adjacent to town hall, see if you can start assembling that. Or at least get an option to do this. So that's, as I mentioned, take the first steps towards this public-private partnership while the market is strong. And then meet with regional developers to evaluate, bring in a focus group of developers to show them the sites, show them the dimensions, surveys, whatever you have, whatever due diligence you can undertake, provide that to them and see what they think, might be the best sites to redevelop first. Identify, resolve any obstacles. The last thing you want to do is invite a developer in and then have them show up at this meeting saying, this rule is preventing me from, whatever it is. Complete as much due diligence as you can for each site. That includes things like surveys, environmental reviews, double check the infrastructure capacity, zoning, make sure zoning is right, the parking regulations are right. That makes you much more attractive to developers. What they want to do is limit risk and get rid of the unknowns. So if there are any unknowns related to those sites, it's going to make it less attractive out there in the market. And then develop revenue estimates for the parking fees. And you can also develop revenue estimates for what this new development will produce in terms of property taxes to help pay for the other streetscape work and anything else that you have proposed in downtown. We spent in downtown Raleigh about $400 million, including the new convention center, in improvements in our downtown as part of the Livable Streets Plan, and it leveraged about $8 billion of new private investment. So we have paid for that investment over and over, the public side of it, over and over, by doing catalytic projects that attract private investment. And then lastly, I mentioned, but promote alternate mobility, the bike network, use the Ray development sites to, get rid of students that bring cars. And then charging for on-street parking during the school year will help with turnover and make it less attractive to store our car there and run to a class. This is just work with the student groups about that planting along the wildflower strip. I mentioned Bullet 2, which is the summer entertainment series at I think it's the Turner. Is it called the Turner Theater? Yeah, the Turner Theater. There's lots of benefits to that. And then explore the creation of that skate park on university property at the corner of Holt and West College. And I'll take any questions that you might have.
About a week or 2 weeks ago, we had a driver who pulled into a parking spot, and instead of hitting their brake, hit their gas and went right into a building. Maybe started helping us with redevelopment. But the problem that we're really dealing with is, I'm still looking at those bollards and saying, I think I remember at the meeting, you said that those aren't necessarily built for safety. They're not built, they're just built for decoration.
Well, it depends on how much money you want to spend on a bollard. If you wanted to stop a terrorist truck loaded with stuff, you're going to spend a couple $5,000 on each bollard, each one, and you probably have 100 of them there. If the idea is to make clear to the cars that this is a pedestrian area, slow down, there's people dining here, then it's a few $100 a bollard, so you have to decide.
But this person didn't decide to do it on purpose. They weren't a terrorist. I'm trying to get into the idea that when you show that conceptual drawing of someone just sitting there with the bollard and then there's the road.
Mhm.
And there to me is a safety issue that
Yeah.
we've got to address.
There's also the curb.
Yeah, there's a curb there and
Street trees.
street trees, and it is a safety issue. Just like taking the parking spots out during COVID was a safety issue and you had the plastic jersey wall separating. I wasn't here, but I assume people ate there during that time, so they made a decision whether or not they felt it was safe or not to eat out there. And I could literally show you thousands of examples of the
Yeah, I mean,
condition I
this
just
is
described
happening in huge cities where there are
everywhere.
tens of thousands of cars are going by versus what we have. I mean, this is,
The benefit here is,
Large trucks, we still have large trucks, semis will still.
yeah, yeah.
we could also stop that, some of that.
Yeah, well, Hargate Street in Raleigh, goes from City Hall across Fayetteville. It has 300 or 400 buses on it a day and about 7,000 cars, and people literally sit right next to the moving traffic. No bollards. They didn't put bollards in because it was temporary for COVID and they let them keep it. Right, so they have some wooden planters, made out of, I don't know what, it depends on the restaurant. They're all a little bit different. But there are people literally sitting here and there's a car or a bus driving by where you're sitting.
Yeah, I
Thank
mean,
you to say about the curb too, because the way the rendering looks, I mean, it looks like you're right there.
There is a curb and a row of trees, right? And you can control the speed limit. If you take the speed limit.
Oh,
down.
no, definitely, I would definitely have to do that.
Yeah,
you could also limit truck traffic.
yeah, except for deliveries, I guess there are, the reason I mentioned about the loading zone somewhere on Williamson, because there are some properties that have access from behind, from that parking behind, but there are some that don't. And so for them, you're gonna need some kind of loading zone, although it doesn't have to be for an 18-wheeler. Most of this stuff comes in box trucks, not the big giant ones.
Yeah.
I think typically they're about 30 feet long, a loading
What?
zone.
Don't they just park on the street, the large trucks that do deliveries?
Not for.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
they park behind
Oh, so they do pull in.
Mhm.
Okay.
for the restaurants that are related to the parking behind. But you have the shop at the corner there that doesn't have any access to that parking. Cynthia's place, so, that kind of thing would need a place to have a panel truck.
Doesn't the university have dumpster pickup?
They have a loading,
There's a loading dock there. so
yeah.
They'd have to reroute their ability to get into.
Well, no, we didn't change anything on that
Well,
side
I'm
of the
saying,
street.
if your proposal is to stop traffic, then that impedes their ability to deliver in their dock.
Yeah.
I think the speed limit could take care of most of it. It's just that unfortunately, there are moments when something like that could happen. That's all
Absolutely,
I was
no
just
question.
thinking about it. I just wanted to make sure that we can't make everyone 100% safe. There's always risk, as we heard from our attorney. It's just, I just wanted to hear.
Yeah.
I just remember you saying that at one of those public meetings, and I thought, okay, I just wanted to kind of.
Yeah, we have them on City Plaza in Fayetteville Street. There's an area in Fayetteville Street, Raleigh, where it expands out, where it was designed to host concerts and things. So there's no curb there. It's flat, but it's brick, like we showed here, where the brick plaza goes across. And so that does send a signal to drivers when they hear the tires on the brick. I gotta slow down. This is different. This is not like your typical street. I gotta look a little bit better than I have, So it does provide some signals to the driver to be a little bit more careful that you're in a different environment here than you were, coming in, like I did, coming in, it feels more like a highway, coming in from the exit and coming from the university, it feels a little different. And when you send that signal, like the new crossing at the rail or the new plaza going across, oh, this is different, slow down. Of course, you can change the speed limit as well.
Well, I just want to say that. I'm glad you put this picture up. I know that we have a lot of one-sided, but even with the railroad track going down there, when you look at that view, you've got stuff happening on both sides. Now, of course, that's not gonna happen anytime like tomorrow, but it's definitely a beautiful look to me. I think that it has a very aesthetic look. If that's what I would say, and I think that it has real potential. It's just we would have a big uphill with this, but maybe this is what the best options that we have right now.
And, you know, and I want to say to residents who might be watching or whatever, you know, we're not proposing that all this huge, big change happen tomorrow, right? I mean, one of these redevelopment projects might be, you know, feasible in the short term. And if you started tomorrow with a staff member designated to it, and it would still be 2 or 3 years before it comes out of the ground. These things take a lot of time, a lot longer than you think to manage. And you got to do these RFP processes, give them time to respond. And then if you shortlist it, then you got to give time to respond. I mean, when we did the last one we did was in Myrtle Beach. And from when we started to when they were negotiating with the developer was almost 1.5 years. And they were in a big hurry. So we were push. But it took about 1.5 years to get the developer selected, and they're in negotiations, I think, now with them.
Do you find that towns and cities have had success in dealing with developers who have worked on other properties?
Yeah, there's a lot of developers out there that only do public-private partnerships. There may not be any here in Elon, but I can tell you in North Carolina, or maybe not only, but it's kind of their specialty. They aren't afraid of that extra time that I just mentioned and having the negotiations and working with the town and the university. Obviously, the gentleman that developed the property at the corner of College and Williamson, you know, that's a public-private partnership, you know, or I guess private, at the university's private, but, you know, he worked with a big bureaucratic entity to be able to get that project done. So there's lots of committees and things, you know, when you work with universities and towns, and people get a lot of bites at the apple as it works its way through the approval and RFP system. That scares some guys off, right? And ladies, some developers are like, that's not my bag. I want a greenfield site 2 miles out of town. Zoning's already approved. I can crank it out, put my model that I do everywhere, that I stamp out around the country. I can drop it here and know I'll be ready for occupancy in 18 months. Those guys are not going to respond to the RFP because that's not their business model.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a vast improvement than what we sat through in 2014.
Oh, yeah.
And were presented knowing there wasn't a snowball's chance in Hades is ever going to come to fruition. But with that said, is the university has their master plan.
We read it.
How does their master plan overlay with what this proposal?
It's in complete alignment. The only thing that really affects them is this, there's a pedestrian path that lines with College Avenue that goes all the way through sort of the old campus, and they forget the language they use, but they call it like I don't know, like a cultural spine or an important spine.
Touchable.
Yeah, something. It's an important part culturally of their campus. And this, with your plaza and the little change we made on their side, we talked to the architect, landscape architect, he was okay showing this, that it just sort of, this tries to strengthen that. You know, so we're trying to strengthen elements of their plan. Their plan, I think, also talks about reaching out to the town and trying to do more events, you know, with, so the Turner Theater thing, again, aligns with some of their vision and plan. We vetted all this. Their members were at all 3 of the public meetings. So, you know, none of this should be a surprise to the university. They've all seen it, and we held a separate, I think we did one separate meeting with the landscape architect for the campus architect. So, you know, we've done a lot of, I myself have done a lot of, you know, I did the downtown Chapel Hill master plan twice. You want to talk about, I mean, once I wished I had the chief with me.
They gave you a second chance on it.
They did. And the second time the first public meeting, they did something that you never do, which is hand a microphone to someone in front of 200 people. And the person they handed it to just riled up the whole crowd. And there was no point. I was in my second slide before they asked me to leave. So, and I wish I would have had a policeman with me that day. I really did. I was a little nervous.
I'll also say the current master plan for the university, or their 10-year plan, is really focused on the campus.
Yeah.
And other areas.
Yeah.
Downtown is not part of that current plan. So, you know, we're not stepping on any toes with this because they don't have any plans right now for downtown.
Well, the reason I was asking that question because down West Haggard, they own a good bit of that property.
Mhm.
Didn't really know what that plan, how that would fit in, or would it
Well, we identified,
complementary?
we identified one prime redevelopment site there, and I believe it's where you have targeted for the new police station. Is that on West Haggard? Yeah, so that was the site that we identified, that was like, oh, this is a good. Site for redevelopment, and then we heard in internal meetings like, yeah, we thought so too, we're gonna put the police there. And so we took it off our list, because, there's already something planned for it. But I can tell you this, I read their master plan, and they talk a lot in different places in that plan about the importance of downtown. That it's the front door and the welcome for the university, and how they want it to be vital and active, and all the things the university would want, and this plan is seeking to do that, so. Hopefully they'll be supportive.
How does this play into the study that we just approved last meeting?
Corridor plan?
The corridor, yeah.
The downtown plan didn't focus on Haggard. The right of way, largely because the corridor plan was already taking place. So we didn't want to duplicate efforts. So you're pretty silent on Haggard.
Yeah, we were told to be,
Yeah.
for that very reason, that you have another consultant under contract that's looking at that, so we didn't.
So they, I mean, they fit together that way, and that, they don't overlap. And as you can see, the site recommendations are largely focused in the core downtown area, as opposed to moving out of downtown. This would typically come, ideally would come first, and in 10, 15 years, when this is all built out, we have to do another downtown plan. Yeah, we'd extend our view, but so that no conflicts.
Yeah, we try to be really strategic. That is a difference in our firm, is that we try to be strategic about the redevelopment sites we identify, and we try to make them really catalytic. Meaning that if one of them happens, it's really gonna change the way people think about it. Like if you redid the streetscape on Williamson and got those wide sidewalks with cafes. 3 years from now, when I come back here, it's gonna feel different in downtown. There'll be people out eating, laughing, drinking, eating. There'll be all kinds of life. A lot of towns have, and yours is one of them, has lots of life behind the glass, but you just don't see it when you're driving through. So I can't tell you, we've worked in several towns where people said, well, there's nothing going on down there. And you're like, well, but every business is full, it's just none of it's on the sidewalk. So, and some of these towns, they allow people to put mirror stuff on the glass, or really dark glass, so you can't see into the building. That's a big mistake, because then people think it's vacant or empty. And so people want to, what we like to do more than anything else as humans is watch other humans. It's the number one activity that we undertake, no matter where we are. We like to talk about it, like, oh, look at the dress on that person. I can't believe that guy's wearing those shoes. Whatever it is, that's what we like to do. And there's no place to do that in your downtown, except during changing classes. There's no place to sit out and watch people and talk about them.
You haven't spent enough time downtown.
Well, there's not enough. Let me say,
Get space to do this.
there's not enough places for people to do that, right? And now that we're in the fall, I mean, it's tough in the summer when it's super hot. There's trees will help, shade and all that. But when you're in the fall, I mean, downtown Raleigh just blossoms, because everybody comes back out, the heat's off, it's not 90% humidity, and it's fun to sit outside, and time that with the fall football season. And I just can't imagine this downtown isn't just buzzing on Saturdays, during home games, and has people sitting out doing all kinds of fun.
One more question real quick. When we approved the corridor study, it was said that even though it was just conceptual, it would lead us to be able to get funding and possibly give us some leverage. Does approving this give us any kind of leverage like that for funding, things like that, to have this books kind of thing?
Yes, I mean, you frequently hear of shovel-ready projects. This puts us much closer.
Yeah.
Engineering work puts us that much closer. Permitted work, you're Johnny on the spot then if there's a funding avenue that opens up, because you've got a permit in hand, you're ready to roll as soon as you get the money. What the politicians like to see. They like to see that money go out and get spent right away. So yeah, when we are looking for transportation enhancement money to do a streetscape project, having this plan will help us.
Yeah, absolutely. And my wife is a lobbyist, even though they just approved the money. There are billions of dollars sitting unspent in Raleigh right now that are looking for projects like this. Depending on how powerful your senator or representative is, I don't know the politics of elements. But that can make a big difference. We did some projects in Pilot Mountain. Next door to Mount Airy, and we did it. Having the drawing enables them to go to the senator and say, look, this is what we want to do. We need, I don't know, I'll make a number up, 200,000 for the engineering work. Oh, okay, you could say, I think it was tested 4 or 5 times in the public. The community supports this. The business owners support it, right? And so that's also something a politician likes to hear, that voters and donors really support this change. And so they got, I think, I don't know, 50,000 one year and 25,000 the next, just by asking. They just asked for it. There's a lot of it out there now. I'm sure they'll do others. They have other plans, I'm sure as well, but.
And that's how we asked money for the water line on Haggard. They asked for ideas and we gave them one, and oh my God, we got $2.5 million for it.
Yeah. Can't guarantee it, but in my 20 years of planning in North Carolina, there's more money
State budget.
banked in the legislature today than there has been in that 20-year period. Because of all the infrastructure money and federal money, and they all predicted that during COVID, all the revenues would drop, and they didn't. So there's a lot of money parked over there looking for something to do besides, tax cuts and other things.
Obviously, I love the aesthetics of it. I love the ability for businesses to grow. Idealistically, what I really would love to have is no more town gown. I know that there's even a town gown city managers association.
International Town Gown Association.
Across the country.
Yeah.
And what I would love is it just to be Elon.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like a Pollyanna idea, but I would love in the end for this to come together where the students and the residents don't see any stopping between these two communities.
Right.
Where it's one community. And I think it starts where you have the pavilion and the access that the university may be willing to give or is willing to give to have the historic arch there. So you have the history of but have the walls come down and allow people to experience what a beautiful place all of Elon is. And so I think this is a really good step toward making that, allowing folks to come into Turner Theater, maybe having that seating area that I think we talked about a long time ago in that huge plaza area that they have there. So
Yep.
Idealistically, there's a lot of opportunities here. You guys have done a great job. And I would love to not hear town gown in the future. I would love to hear Elon.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
But I could say
It's a reality. I know.
two big bureaucracies and there's all sorts of levels.
It was Pollyanna.
The best one I ever saw, William Peace College, it was Peace University, when I was there. We asked them to take down the wall, they walled themselves off from downtown and they opened it way up and became really good partners in downtown. They had issues that we had to help them with, and I think, my understanding is relations are pretty good right now between the town and the university, and we did the best we could to reach out to them and make sure that they were informed of all this, that there are no surprises, and that's how you keep that relationship good, is communication the key, and helping each other where you can builds trust and allows a lot of good things to happen. Some universities and towns are, the relationship is just terrible, and we work in a lot of courthouse towns. In fact, we're working in one now. That's always my first question: how does the county and the city get along, right? Because if the county has a big presence downtown and they hate the city, it's hard to get the county to participate in stuff. So there's always these sort of things, and my experience has always been good communication. Helping each other builds trust. Don't turn your back on them, they shouldn't turn their back on you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And then did you want us to just open up for just general public comment, not a public hearing, but if there's any comments?
Yeah.
Anybody wish to speak?
What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. I think that as they talked about, the university is open to these conversations and we certainly realize that a vibrant downtown is critical for our success. And want to do what we can to support that. So I think the one example of the town square crossing right there is something we need to talk about. I think there's a lot of practical things we would need to talk about, but I like the idea of it. So I think they've had the conversations with Brad and
Yes.
that's the right place for it to have started. And so I think it aligns well with our master plan as they articulated. So I'm all for it.
I should mention, there was one thing Brad asked for specifically that we didn't present tonight, but that is in the plan. It's a left turn lane on Williamson heading to East Lebanon. So you know, there isn't one there today, but we did a sketch that shows it is possible to make a left turn lane to that parking on, I guess it's East Lebanon, that side.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that the stacked 3 or 4 cars there takes away half of the widened sidewalk. And because you have to take it somewhere, and so the only place to take it.
Parking on that side.
Yeah, and so while it is possible to do it, we would not recommend it. We think it's more important to have the street cafe and sidewalk experience than it is to let students make a quicker left turn and not have to stack.
Go with the signal lights.
Yeah, or you could just ban left turns there, right?
You can also go left on this side of the tracks and go around if you're headed down that way.
Yeah, I mean, I am a guy who, if you look at the most successful downtowns, they limit the car more than any other. Right? Nobody says, hey, I want to work. My wife and I are planning a trip to Paris this week. I hear they have good parking, right? I hear it's easy to make a left turn. Nobody does that, right? They say they have a great cafe culture. There's all kinds of people, fun people to watch, good people watching, you know, and so any chance I get to limit the impact of the car, whether it's moving or stored, I try to do that, because those downtowns that do that are look at Asheville, Raleigh. Now we've done it somewhat. Those towns are the most successful because that's where people want to be. But I do want to say, Brad asked us and we did look, and it is in the plan, but not a recommendation of ours.
Any other comments? All right, do I have a motion to approve the 2023 downtown master plan?
I'll make that motion.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. It's been a joy working here. Enjoyed,
We have been a lot of time together, so.
yeah, you got a good staff and,
We saw it.
and the university was great to work with. So, yeah. It was one of the better
And
ones.
I know Mark is not here this evening, but he would have been very excited to see this, so.
Well, if he has any questions, he can,
He's on the downtown committee. so-
Yeah.
well, if there's anybody even on your board or someone we didn't reach that has questions, maybe Brad, I don't know. We're open to take a phone call if it helps. Yeah.
Thank
When the
you.
first developer shows up, we'll have a room full of people, so.
I'm happy to take those.
And they'll all
arrows
say-
if you need someone to.
To them.
When did we decide to do this?
You can put my face on the target if you want. It's not the first time.
All right, moving on to reports, Rich.
Real briefly, Sustainability Committee meets this Wednesday morning at 8:30. Next Monday, the 2nd, the Diversity, Equity and Belonging Committee is meeting. That's at 9 AM here. The next Tuesday is the SMART public meeting. It will be held in this room as well. And just remind everybody that the LMO is in the middle of public comment. It's available on our website. Encourage people to check it out and give us your comments. That's all I got.
Thank you.
It's
Stephanie.
now finished then.
That,
LMO is now finished.
the draft is now finished.
Okay, that's what I meant. Okay.
Yeah, and we'll take public comment, public hearing and make revisions as necessary, then present a final document, latter part of November. This is the anticipated schedule.
Stephanie?
Just want to thank everybody. Today's Yom Kippur. I know there was a lot of folks that were trying to make sure that we didn't have the meeting today, and for that, I am very appreciative. I think this is a way to spend it. It's the Day of Atonement for the Jewish community. So for me, it's a time to say my apologies to anybody that I have hurt in any way. It's a very serious thing within our community. And so if I've done anything to harm the community or said things that are not been taken the way that they were originally meant, I sincerely apologize for that. This is a time for us to do that and to move forward. And so even though I'm here right now, I feel like this is a great place to be in order to express those feelings and try and be a better person and a better servant in our Jewish year moving forward. So thank you for giving me the time to do that.
Thank you.
And not too much, appreciate you, Seth. And I know we were trying to not be here, so
Okay.
everything was great in that regard. School's going great for the little ones at Elon. I see the Elon police out there, somebody every morning directing the traffic, so I always roll the window down and thank them. Other than that, I think we have an art meeting the third Wednesday of this coming up month of October, and then the Halloween happenings. Looking forward to having the little ones dressed up and come out there. But other than that, I think staff are doing a wonderful job, and I look forward to seeing how we move forward with this downtown master plan.
Thank you. Randy?
I really don't have anything, so I'm just gonna pass. But I just wanted to say, thank you for meeting on Yom Kippur, and like you said, it's a time of atonement and a time for forgiveness, so hope you forgive us for meeting tonight. So
It's me doing that for you.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Nothing other than, we had a meeting last week in the Beach EMP transportation and scoring of projects, and they've extended the deadline to mid-October, and Lori's not here, but there were some questions that our engineer had about how they score some of those projects, and is there something we could have done better or do better with the time window still open? So hopefully maybe Lori has had an opportunity. That's it.
Okay. Let's see, I attended the Mayor's Association last week. It was a great time with other mayors in Asheville. There were some presentations that I shared some just highlights with all of you, or a novel with all of you. There's a lot of grant funding out there, so as it was mentioned, so Rich knows I am gonna be hammering this home. There was a railroad update, so that was really interesting to hear how they're really focused on enhancing commuter rail in North Carolina, with additional opportunities to get to like DC and New York, even with proposed like high-speed train between, I think, Rocky Mount and DC maybe. So there's a lot to, happening there. There were conversations about the economic impact of festivals and events. And I shared some numbers that I had written down where, towns that have like 2,500 people bring in 35,000 for a festival, and just, how that really impacts them. And then actually the police chief from Burlington, so Baylog, he did a presentation on civilian traffic investigators, but he also just talked about how they've been able to utilize civilians to take on some of the administrative duties within the police department. And then the police are then able to do police work and not just the administrative work. And I thought it was really interesting. But he was talking about speeding, and I feel like that's one thing that we constantly hear about. And he said that they did like 3 targeted dates, and each date they pulled over 100 people in each event, and one vehicle was going 83 and a 35. And I was telling my husband about this as we were taking a walk through downtown yesterday. I was like, I guarantee you at least one car a day probably does that on Williamson, like just flying through there. 5:30 a.m., 6 a.m. when I walk in the morning, you would not believe how fast the cars are going through neighborhoods and on Williamson. So I just found that to be really interesting. One thing I did have a question about is the ordinance related to food trucks. And I wonder if there's an opportunity for us to do something on Mondays when our restaurants aren't open. I can't tell you how many times I'm downtown on a Monday and people are pulling on doors and they're like, really, every restaurant is closed? So maybe there's something that we could try on a temporary basis where it's like on Mondays, we allow food trucks or, just looking at some opportunities there. Because there's still people in town that want to eat on a Monday, so. Okay, I think that is it. In just a moment, I'm gonna ask for a motion related to a closed session. Just for everyone's information, you're welcome to stay and wait if you wish to do so. But we will not take any action following our closed session other to adjourn. So, right? We're not taking any action.
I don't believe we need any action
Right.
from you tonight.
Yeah. So, Monty is.
Yeah, I'll make that motion. We go into closed session. Pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A3 to consult with an attorney to order to preserve the attorney-client privilege and to consider and give instructions to an attorney concerning the handling of estate of Camden Rivers Maynard versus Orlando Arday Maynard and the town of Elon.
Thank you.
Thanks, bro.
Do I have to take a second?
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Yeah.